It's time, Cougar Nation. Cougar Tracks. The best season analysis with BYU insider Mitch Harper on KSL NewsRadio and on video every day on the YouTube page for KSL Sports.
Welcome into Cougar Tracks here on the KSL Sports YouTube and KSL NewsRadio, your legacy home of the Cougars. It's Thursday, January 15th, and I'm your BYU insider, Mitch Harper. BYU basketball is flying high. The Cougars earned their 13th consecutive victory by taking down TCU last night. And let's start things off there in our top story of the day.
The top story of the day. The biggest story in the world of BYU sports right here on Cougar Tracks.
76-70, BYU defeats TCU. It wasn't a pretty game. BYU wins a heated Big 12 conference game by only shooting 35% from the field, 21% from the three-point line, and still come away with a victory. TCU gave it a go, man. They gave their best effort, I thought. They had a lead of 9 points early in the second half, 39-30, and you're thinking this might not be BYU's night, especially when you consider A.J. Dybantsa was under the weather. And not many people really knew about that going in, and players learned of that early in the pregame. But still, AJ was not in his typical form. We saw him roll out with long sleeve shirts, which threw off Kevin Young. It threw me off too. I was having flashbacks to Jimmer Fredette in his mono game back against UNLV in 2010. So AJ was under the weather. Then he takes a hard fall in the first half, lands on his right shoulder. Rob Wright was limping gingerly in the first half. It was a physical game. 41 fouls were called. Yet still, BYU found a way to get it done. I was really impressed with the effort on the glass from BYU. In the second half in particular, BYU out-rebounds TCU by 17 rebounds. Huge effort by BYU on the glass, and rebounding's been a hot topic for BYU this season. I think they've been really good and stepped it up in Big 12 play. Kevin Young, head coach for the Cougars, discussed rebounding and referenced a former NFL coach who just recently retired as motivation with inspiring his team on the glass.
You know, Mike Tomlin, who I have a lot of respect for, said something after their playoff loss the other day, and obviously just stepped down. But I love guys like him because they say it how it is. You either do or you don't, was his message. You either do or you don't. And there's people that do in life, and they are successful, and the people that don't aren't. And so, like, I don't really go philosophical too much on you guys, but, like, that really struck me. And so I was really getting tired of talking about, and he followed up by saying there's too much talking in our business. And so I'm getting tired of talking about rebounding. Usually, you know, defensively we talk about it, but offensively we talk about it ad nauseum. And so tonight we had 21 offensive rebounds. You know, that's how you sustain shooting 35% from the field. You know, we had +7 on field goal attempts, +11 on free throw attempts. You know, and that's how you're able to sustain a night like that where not every night's going to be your night on the offensive end. So you got to find different ways, you know, to win the ball game. And I thought our guys, I told them they should have confidence because we can win a lot of different ways. And, you know, that's a tough team. Coach Dixon's a great coach, and they just play really hard. And so that was a dogfight, man. I'm just proud of the guys for pulling it out because of the rebounding.
In the second half, it was 30-13 in rebounds, advantage BYU. Keba Keita, 7 rebounds. How about Hadim Boop coming off the bench, 6 rebounds in the second half for Hadim. Rob Wright, 4 rebounds. Richie Saunders, another 4. But I thought Hadim Boop's contributions off the bench were impactful for this team in the second half when you consider Bidu Ahmed was dealing with a shoulder injury and he was out for this game. So BYU's backup center to Keba Keita was out, and that left Hadim Boop and Mihailo Buskovic to step in that backup 5 spot. Mihailo had a big 3 as well, right in front of the Hollywood seats in the second half. I thought BYU's bench production was better than what it's been in recent games. Still only 9 points in from the bench in the game, but still, that's an impactful 9 when you have a big 3 like BYU does. That's still on a off night by BYU standards. To have that big 3 still go off for 58 points, where AJ is, under the weather. Richie's playing a physical game. Rob Wright's a little hobbled at the end of that first half. I thought that was solid production. This was KY on the game.
Yeah, it was a gut check type win for our group. Felt like anything that could go wrong would go wrong. I felt like our whole team had 4 fouls. Thought AJ was going to die out there, and they just found a way to make plays. He's obviously a great player. We needed him, and he stepped up. And then Richie, not being his night, hits that huge 3. Also got a couple Richie-style offensive rebounds that helped.
It was an impressive showing by BYU. The late game was not great. I thought the 9 p.m. tip, did not like that. Maybe I'm just getting older. I'm typically a night owl, and one of my resolutions this year is to get to bed at a more reasonable time, because during football season, I'll stay up every night almost to 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. Got to get out of that habit. So I've been trying to get to bed at a reasonable hour. The game last night kind of threw me off my schedule with all of that, but still, and maybe it threw off the guys a little bit too, because this team is so routine based. Even KY talks about how he's so big on routines, but they just found a way to get it done. And I like some of the contributions too defensively from Moo Davis. Moo offensively, I want to see BYU factor him more going forward. He had 7 field goal attempts. He only knocked down 1. Moo will turn it around offensively, but I thought there was some solid contributions on the defensive end, which were really promising for Moo Davis. He had 6 boards in the game for BYU, but AJ Dybantsa was spectacular at the beginning of the second half. I mean, he set the tone for BYU, because BYU was down 6 at the break, and I didn't think BYU was going to lose the game because they've been so good in second half that I expected a run. But when you consider TCU stylistically is similar to the cut of an Iowa State, a Houston, these sort of teams have at times given Kevin Young's squad some headaches. But I thought AJ came out and made a statement. Some of the old-fashioned three-point plays where David punched the big man for TCU, number 15, in the paint. AJ gets to his spot, draws the foul, hits the bucket, lets out a huge scream. Moments like that were huge for BYU. And that and one where he's floating in air, and you're thinking, my goodness, this guy is under the weather, and he's still doing this. AJ is just so good. He's spectacular on really any night. To get 25 on a night where he's not feeling well, it speaks to his incredible ability. But I thought that BYU, they threw a little bit of that zone action at TCU at times, and TCU, to their credit, always had some answers to be hanging around. Former BYU player Tanner Toulson, he had 7 points. He missed some big shots that could have kept TCU a little bit closer to BYU. The Horned Frogs had opportunities, but BYU found a way to get it done, and now they have 13 consecutive wins on the season. This BYU team, it's been 2 months since today, the last time they lost a game. That's impressive. I don't care what season or what the schedule looks like. You win 13 consecutive games in a college basketball season where you only have 31 regular season games. That's almost half your season you go on a win streak. This is a special team. And BYU, even though stylistically the performance wasn't glitzy, it wasn't glamorous, but I think it is a confidence boost that they can win in different ways. The last couple of years since BYU's been in the Big 12, I feel like there's been a little bit of a pigeonholed way that BYU has to win a game. This team can win in a variety of ways, and that's really exciting, I think, for this BYU team going forward, which, again, had a really strong performance. I thought Richie Saunders, too, was big, and he was dealing with the foul trouble, 4 fouls. I mean, so many guys, as KY noted. Kada had 4, Boop had 4, so many whistles. I mean, Cougar fans were getting fired up at the refs. There have not been many games in recent memory to the level that the fans were getting after the refs like that I can remember. There was a foul on David Punch where it looked like it was a clean block. He goes to the foul line facing the rock, misses both free throws, gets the Marriott Center free Chick-fil-A, and it felt like a ball don't lie moment. It was just one of those tough physical nights in the Big 12, but BYU comes out on top, 76-70. Next up, Saturday in Lubbock against the Texas Tech Red Raiders. We'll have an in-depth preview with a Texas Tech insider tomorrow here on the show, so stay tuned for that. Let's take a break. We'll get to BYU football next as a future BYU quarterback hits the mission trail. We'll hit on that next here on Cougar Tracks, and it's powered by KSL Sports. Welcome back into Cougar Tracks here on KSL NewsRadio. Mitch Harper with you. Every day we're talking BYU sports, and if you could be kind enough, subscribe to the show on audio, wherever you get your podcast, and video, the KSL Sports YouTube. Subscribe, leave a like on this video. It helps out the show a ton. So BYU future signal caller. We saw him last night at the Marriott Center. Ryder Lyons, home MTC. He was at Salt Lake City International Airport flying to the Mexico MTC as he gets set to go out on his mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. He's going to be serving in Orlando, Florida, Spanish-speaking mission. But he was at the game last night for, home-based MTC. He's going to be going and going on the mission. But I got thinking of seeing Ryder last night and also seeing Bear Bachmeier, who he was sitting nearby next to. Bear was at the basketball game last night too, and he got a big standing ovation from the BYU crowd at the Marriott Center in that late night game against TCU. But I was thinking about the quarterback pipeline for BYU, and to me, it's in a really good place. And I thought it was pretty cool too how Ryder Lyons earlier this week, he was speaking in his farewell talk, this past Sunday in his home ward. And Kalani Sitake and BYU AD Brian Santiago were both there supporting Ryder Lyons. Ryder Lyons has such a big future ahead of him. And the fact that the recruiting rankings dropped him from number 5-star to a 4-star is insane to me. Keep in mind, they dropped him from a 5-star to a 4-star in a year where the man earned Gatorade Player of the Year in the state of California. Not just Southern California, not just Northern California, where he's based out of in Folsom, California. It was the entire state. Ryder Lyons was the best player in high school football in the state of California, a state with tons of talent on the gridiron, and he was the best. The only thing that maybe he didn't do right in the eyes of recruiting evaluators was go to the traditional recruiting brands. And Lyons, with BYU in this quarterback position, I just think BYU is in such a great place at the quarterback spot. Because with Bear Bachmeier coming up this season and the years to come, Bear, I'm fascinated to see how he evolves as a quarterback. He was so good this past season, throwing for over 3,000 yards, but I'm excited for next year because he's going to have a full offseason to be around the facility, to train and get ready and not have to deal with a quarterback competition. And then when Ryder Lyons joins the program in 2027, that's the expected arrival. He's been telling people it's going to be a one-year mission for him, and then he'll be matriculating into the program in 2027, which makes sense because then he could have a chance to play with his brother, Walker Lyons, who just joined the program. But I love where BYU's at with its quarterback position. And Kalani Sitake has made it such a priority to have strength at the QB spot. Look, every program wants star signal callers at quarterback because it's so critical to the fabric of every college football team. Look at Monday night with Fernando Mendoza at Indiana, Carson Beck at Miami. Great quarterbacks. They're in the national title game. But I think with BYU, Kalani understood that when he took the job, it was a little bit of up and down play at QB for BYU. Like, you had some great moments, but still it was not the machine, the factory churning great signal callers year after year after year. And I get the sense that BYU's getting back to that because you look at what's been happening since this decade, 2020, Zach Wilson, Jaron Hall, Keaton Slovis, who, yeah, he wasn't a great 1 year at BYU, but he's in the NFL. And he had 1 year at BYU where he was competitive. I mean, he was 5-2, 5-3 as a starting QB at BYU. Not bad. And then it spiraled out for that BYU team in 2023. Jake Retzloff got Tulane to a college football playoff. But Bear Bachmeier, I think, has taken it to a higher level from Retzloff and Slovis in the Big 12 era. And I think Ryder Lyons has endless potential too. Same with Bear Bachmeier. And I just think BYU is in a great spot with its program. What you've been seeing the past few weeks with all the retention, elevating Kelly Papinga, there are great moves happening with BYU and retaining Kalani Sitake with a long-term deal. Ryder Lyons and Bear Bachmeier are almost just as important as the head coach for the short term of BYU's future as a program, because these are the guys that really will be BYU's faces of the program, ideally for the next, 5, 6, maybe 7 years. And that's a big shoulder to bear for just individual guys, but they have so much talent, and the investment that BYU's put into these players, the recruiting, the relationships that they built, I think it's an exciting time. And I just think to see those guys kind of in earshot of one another, I'll be very fascinated to see how that all plays out down the road. I mean, with college football, you always just assume everything at this point is a 1 year thing. But I like to think that BYU's something different with what's transpired this offseason so far. Maybe they are the program that's completely different than others. Maybe. There's still attrition that always happens, but this quarterback position is in really good hands. And you've also got Enoch Watson from Arizona, who was coached by Ty Detmer and Max Hall. Talented quarterbacks in the pipeline for BYU. And ultimately, that is so good for BYU football, because when you've got great quarterback play, that typically lines up with great seasons and big-time opportunities to crash the national landscape, because that's what's in front of BYU going forward, is trying to break through and get to the playoff. And seeing Ryder Lyons, seeing Bear Bachmeier at the basketball game last night, it just got me thinking, like, these are the guys that are potentially going to be the ones that get BYU to break through and get to the playoff. And that's kind of on their shoulders a little bit. It's a lot to ask, but the quarterback comes with a lot of pressure, a lot of expectations. And for Bear, he had a marvelous freshman season. How does he level that up? And for Ryder Lyons, an all-world recruit, one of the highest BYU signed in the 21st century. High expectations when he matriculates into the program. But I'd like to think that one of those guys is going to get it done and break through and get to the playoff. And for that, BYU is in really good hands as a football program and got a bright future ahead with its quarterback position. That's going to do it for this edition of Cougar Tracks. I hope all of you enjoyed it. Make sure to subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts, and I'll talk to you tomorrow to get you ready for BYU versus Texas Tech right here on KSL News Radio.